Now, the arguments used by those who tried to stop Ketanji Brown Jackson from being confirmed, but the arguments often register as little more than, in this case, in most cases anyway, as an historical footnote after, years after the appointment. But what happened this time, the vehemence, the nastiness, the viciousness, the lies and deception and horror that was dumped on Judge Jackson by the Christians is not going to recede quickly from popular memory. It's just not. Because the Christian white people and one black Christian fascist, the Senator Tim Johnson, is it Johnson from South Carolina? What a piece of work he is, huh? Because the attacks on Judge Jackson were just unconscionable. Now, let's go back to 1991, the confirmation hearing for Judge Uncle Clarence Thomas. He described his hearings as, quote, a high-tech lynching. Not because white people were coming after him. The word lynching conjures up a certain collective response in most white people and black people. But no, that's not why. I mean, Uncle Clarence used the word because he knew it was an electric word and it would get the result that he wanted, and it did. But he used it after Anita Hill, a former assistant to him when he was in the Office of Economic Opportunity. Is that what it was? Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. I guess that's what it was. But Anita Hill brought forward allegations that Uncle Clarence had sexually harassed her repeatedly, over and over. And her assessment was different from what Clarence Thomas went through, because she wrote an op-ed that appeared yesterday, Thursday, in the Washington Post. And she wrote that by coming forward with her charges against this unconscionable bastard, she was subjected to, quote, attacks on my intelligence, truthfulness, and even my sanity, end quote. Who was the wag? I'm sure it was some white person in the Senate, some white male, cowardly little shit, who said that Anita Hill was, quote, a little slutty, a little nutty, end quote. Do you remember that? Who said that? Maybe it was somebody, there was no Fox at the time. Maybe it was some asshole maybe it was Rush Limbaugh. If anybody, it would be the still dead Rush Limbaugh. He's probably all rotted away by now. And then at this hearing, you had Republicans, fascist Christians like Lindsey Graham cracker of South Carolina. And did old Lindsey, who voted, I think, twice to confirm her for positions, judge positions in the federal judiciary, but not this time. Old Graham cracker used his time that should have been used to question Judge Jackson about her judicial philosophy, her points of view, a little bit about her history, all that. No. What Graham cracker did was to go over and over and over with that unctuous, furious, and when Lindsey Graham starts getting pissed off, he looks like a caricature of somebody pissed off. But what he saw as unfair Democratic attacks on Brett Kavanaugh during the drunks confirmation hearings. Now, of course, the real attack on Brett Kavanaugh didn't come from Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee or in the Senate. They came from the woman that Brett Kavanaugh raped. But Lindsey, never wanted to miss an opportunity to make himself look like the shithead that he is, really jumped on that. When Christine Blasey Ford accused Kavanaugh of sexual assault when the two were in high school, it doesn't count. I mean, damn, it was 30 years ago. That doesn't count. But when she came forward, do you remember this? It was so painful to watch this. She didn't want to be there. But like Anita Hill, she felt compelled. Hey, wait a minute. Wait a goddamn minute. You're going to confirm this man who is a potential rapist, who sexually assaulted me. Well, but Kavanaugh, just like Uncle Clarence, offered a very bitter assessment of the hearings that Kavanaugh had to endure. Kavanaugh said of the objections made over allegations of sexual misconduct, he said, quote, "This confirmation process has become a national disgrace." I know, end quote. I know he wanted to use the word lynching, but, they'd be a copycat. Now, Anita Hill, of course, is now a professor. I should call her Professor Hill, I guess, a professor at Brandeis University. She concurred in her op-ed that the confirmation process is indeed broken. But she wrote that she was still, quote, "shocked by the interrogation of Jackson, a nominee with stellar credentials and more judicial experience than any of the sitting justices when they were nominated," end quote. How about that? Now, one thing you can count on, the worst attacks against Judge Jackson will be sure to be employed by and against the senators who made them in the coming months and years. But I've got for you here a short list of the standout assholes on the Senate Judiciary Committee. I mean, they're real fascist Christians who, if Jesus Christ would have been sitting in the witness chair for this hearing, waiting for his confirmation to the Supreme Court, these four bastards I'm going to quote for you right now would have put him through the ringer too. 12 guys, huh? Were any of them transgender? Were any of them, Jesus, gay? How about you, Jesus? Are you gay? Huh? I mean, with the robe and the sandals and the long hair and, none of you were married, at least not as far as we know. But the worst offender, they're all bad, but Senator Marsha Blackburn. Two issues that have resonated with Republican voters made up the bulk of her time questioning Judge Jackson. You know what they are: abortion and, oh, dare I say it, transgender rights. Marsha 3 sought to paint Judge Jackson as having characterized all anti-abortion women in a negative light. And Marsha to the third power said that Judge Jackson had, quote, attacked pro-life women, end quote. Marsha quoted a line from a legal brief co-signed by Jackson that described anti-abortion protesters outside an abortion clinic as, quote, a hostile, noisy crowd of in-your-face protesters, end quote. Oh, my God, what a terrible thing to say. Compare that to the things that were said about the Black Lives Matter protesters who were not in your face. They were in the street. I know, because my daughter and I were in some of those demonstrations. But never mind. But Marsha was trying to suggest that Judge Jackson viewed all women who are opposed to abortion in the same way. And then Marsha said this, quote, when you go to church and knowing there are pro-life women there, do you look at them, thinking of them in that way, that they're noisy, hostile, in your face? Do you think of them, do you think of pro-life women like me that way? End quote. Jackson responded, Senator, that was a statement in a brief made in argument for my client. It's not the way I think of or characterize people, end quote. Oh, that blew right right through one ear, into one ear of Marsha, and out the other, because there was nothing between her ears to stop it. Just shoo, shoo. And then in a subsequent exchange on transgender rights, Marsha asked Jackson, quote, can you provide a definition for the word woman? End quote. The judge, who seemed a little bit freaked out by the question, said, quote, I'm not a biologist, end quote. And later, this Q-bitch wannabe, Marsha, said that the reason she would not vote for Jackson was because she was a negress. Oh, not that. Because she was another woman. No, not that. She wouldn't vote for Jackson because of, quote, dark money leftist groups are using her to try to erase woman. I guess she means erase the word woman. Marsha, you are one sick fucking person. Get help. Oh my God. And then we have Ichabod Crane. He of the huge Adam's apple, Senator Tom Cotton, fascist Christian from Arkansas. Now, it just so happens that Trump, because of he wasn't paying attention, he signed into law a Criminal Justice Reform Act that helped reduce prison sentences and improve conditions in federal jails. And a lot of Republicans didn't think that was a good idea, the Christian fascists. And one of those fascist Christians was Tom Cotton. And he went after Judge Jackson for reducing the sentence of a convicted drug dealer named Keith Young, using the guidelines established by the new law that was written by the Congress. And this is what the judge told Ichabod, quote, Congress changed the law, Senator. Congress decided the old penalty, the old crime, was no longer eligible for the increased sentence. So what I determined under those circumstances was that I would resentence Mr. Young to the penalty that Congress had decided was the appropriate penalty for the conduct that he committed as of the time of his motion, end quote. And in response, Ichabod Crane, this dumb shit, said that Judge Jackson, quote, chose to rewrite the law because you were sympathetic to a drug fentanyl kingpin, end quote. And I mean, what the fuck does it take for these fascist Christians? I mean, she sat there and said to him, Congress passed the law. Now, Ichabod, being the dumb shit fascist Christian that he is, it never occurred to him that it was his branch of government that wrote the law. And his cult leader, the Orange Vomit, who signed it into law. But he turns right around and says, well, you chose to rewrite the law because you were sympathetic to a drug fentanyl kingpin. What a monumental asshole. I mean, the Mount Everest of assholes is Tom Cotton. And then we have this crazy bastard, Josh Hawley, he of the raised fist, indicating solidarity with the people who are trying to destroy democracy. Josh Hawley defines fascist Christianity. And in addition to the accusations he made that Judge Jackson held sympathies for terrorists and drug dealers, this miserable bastard Hawley tried to make the case that Judge Jackson, the mother of two children, and they were there during the testimony, I believe, during her hearing. But Hawley, this Nazi fuck, tried to make the case that Judge Jackson had a habit of being too lenient on convicted pedophiles. I mean, It's one thing to oppose somebody for their political beliefs. Happens all the time. But the kind of slime and filth that these senators I'm mentioning and others have covered themselves in is just, I don't know how to deal with it, as remote from it as I am. And I'm not that remote from it. Neither are you, because what these pigs say and grunt and squeal in these hearings becomes part of the official record of what senators in the United States government are okay with saying. And in the case of the acquittal of Donald Trump, what they're capable of doing. During the hearings for Judge Jackson, this Nazi fucker Hawley said Jackson gave, quote, child porn offenders below the guidelines and below what the prosecutors were requiring, end quote. And as he continued his bullshit Nazi diatribe against this woman who is so much better in so many ways as a human being than this son of a bitch will ever be, but he zeroed in on specific cases in which he came to the conclusion in his liquid brain that Judge Jackson had gone, his word, soft on pedophiles. Hawley said this, quote, in every case of these 7, Judge Jackson handed down a lenient sentence which was below what the federal guidelines recommended and below what prosecutors requested, end quote. Now, in providing fact checks of what this Nazi prick was saying, Hawley's line of reasoning was incredibly misleading. And the National Review, conservative, at times neo-fascist itself, the National Review's Andrew McCarthy called what Hawley was doing, his strategy, quote, meritless to the point of demagoguery. What Hawley is, of course, is a fucked up racist of the highest order. He is just a racist. He's a Missouri racist. That's all. If Judge Jackson were white, Hawley never would have gotten into this line of questioning. Proof being that when other judges were up for confirmation who were white, who had done the same thing, Hawley's filthy sump hole of a mouth never came up with this kind of stuff. But he's a racist pig, so no surprise. And I've been working my way down to the most ridiculous, idiotic, and the ugliest, by the way, senator in the U.S. Senate, and that's Ted Cruz. This religious nutfuck, he and his old man was a Pentecostal snake handling, lay hands on you, the devil's in the congregation, we've got to exorcise him, that kind of shit. This is what Ted Cruz comes from. This is what Ted Cruz is. You talk about a fascist Christian, this son of a bitch would burn you at the stake and have a heartbeat given a chance. And that's what he wants, is a chance. Now, he's become a part of the furniture at Fox News primetime slop shows in recent months. And for this asshole, the teaching of so-called critical race theory has become a hot button issue for him because so many people in his sewer base think that critical race theory is something, it's going to destroy white people. So during the questioning of Judge Jackson, this half-human Ted Cruz ran with that ball. Oh, boy, did he. And he questioned Jackson, who is on the board of a school in D.C., the Georgetown Day School. It's a private institution, not a public school. And the half-human Cruz said, and he said this while he was holding up copies of books he said that school had included in his curriculum. He said this, quote, If you look at the Georgetown Day School's curriculum, it is filled and overflowing with critical race theory. End quote. I mean, fuck you, Cruz. What did Judge Jackson have to do with that? But here's the irony. Well, she answered this way. She said, quote, I've not reviewed any of those books, any of those ideas. They don't come up in my work as a judge, which I am respectfully here to address, end quote. And here's the height of irony. The New York Times reported that this filthy pig Cruz sends his own daughter to a private school in Houston that teaches the theories of critical race theory, not as a titled course, but the school describes itself as anti-racist, the one that Cruz sends his daughter to. And for Anita Hill, in her op-ed piece at the Post, Cruz's fixation on critical race theory stood out. And this is what Hill wrote about Cruz's line of questioning, quote, a confirmation hearing should be about learning how a person will judge, not how well she handles specious browbeating, end quote. And I think Anita Hill is being very generous when she refers to this half-human Ted Cruz and his filthy mouth as specious browbeating. Man. And then, last and certainly least, the Q bitch from here in Georgia. Yes, QAnon's own little pet skunk who shows up in the House. And that's Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia. Now, as a House member, of course, she didn't get to vote on Jackson's confirmation. But the Q bitch never wanted to miss a chance to make herself look even more covered in boiled owl shit. She expressed her outrage at Senators Romney and Murkowski and Collins for breaking ranks and voting to confirm Judge Jackson. And to hear the Q bitch tell it, Jackson, the three lawmakers in the Republican Party who voted for her, and President Biden had all shown themselves to be, are you ready? Pro-pedophile. That is an insult and a filthy remark that just makes the QAnon conspiracy assholes quiver with joy when they hear it leveled against someone, because it reaches down into their own psyches. QAnon's founder is in prison for being a child sex molester. Oh my God. All right, I got to stop. This just, I don't know. It's like, reporting on these Nazis in the U.S. Senate. It's like walking into a TB ward with no mask on, where everybody's coughing, and you walk in and start doing deep breathing exercises. I mean, that's how I feel sometimes after reporting on these swine. Oh my God. And I constantly am shocked that there are enough Americans who vote these scum into office. I can't find anything redeeming in that. And that's one of the reasons I walk around here of late with such a negative attitude about the future of this country. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.